Jim,
Hey Doug,
how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
You got better leaf cover over in your yard than I do in mine. It's weird.
Leaf cover.
Well, your background looks like you got your trees are all out over there.
Well, that's from the boulevard. That is not my yard. The boulevard is in bloom now. I'm trying to move
Oh,
over. There you go. There's the flag.
is it really?
What's Lau got in his background? That's the new police vehicle.
Uh, that's my old Jaguar.
That's the fleet. That's part of the Lyle's fleet of fancy cars.
That's the new inspector.
You wouldn't surprise anybody if you came on the street with that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I sold it, unfortunately.
Well, unfortunately, we do that with most things we love. We sell them.
Can I sell my wife?
Well, that's up to you, but I think that'd be dangerous.
There's any number of inappropriate remarks we can make. I'm not going to start. So
Well, you've already started. You just didn't realize it.
darn.
There's our councilman, Tom Druffel.
Hey, Mayor, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. We going to the World Series this year?
Well, I feel like there's a really good chance. I've watched every game, but I've only been to one. They won't let me in. I guess I'm dangerous or something. So
Yeah. Well, I'm planning on going if we do.
We haven't lost but one game, have we, Mayor?
now we've lost
Two.
two. We lost
Oklahoma State.
one of the games at Oklahoma State. We won the first two and lost the third one.
They were ranked 11th, so it's not a bad loss.
It's not when you beat them badly on the first two. I see Rusty's got a little St. Patrick shirt on. He
I wanted to make sure not get pinched by you people.
Tom Druffel's got a green sweater on, unless the colors are deceiving me.
Now, I have a wife that's very Irish, and she's serious about pinching if you don't have green. So we're corned beef and cabbage is on its way right now.
Oh, good. Bob Weagle's got on green. I got on green socks, but I'm not going to show you. Let's see if we've got all our commissioners on. Is Haley up there?
Not yet.
I don't see Haley. I see our new police chief he's got his own desk and he's got his own window and he looks like he's just in charge.
How are you, Mayor?
I'm good, Chuck. How are you?
Doing very well.
Larry, notice I got a flag too in my background.
Yes, sir. I might let you have it and I'll switch to City Hall and not have the office.
Yeah, Larry.
Now, yours is actually live. Mine's the photograph.
Whatever you want to do, sir.
Yeah. Steve Casey's here. Hi, Steve.
I see Tom Druffel.
Larry, how are you, sir? Good to see you. Good thing the tornadoes are going to miss us.
Phew.
There, I just got it. It's over
Put it on this.
on the one that comes up for invoices over $5,000.
Did you
I can.
Others.
You sure?
Yeah. No.
I literally just got it.
Yeah.
So she said, do it this week and we'll get it out.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Lee didn't know she was on a hot mic. We'll give Haley another minute or so. Tom, I don't want to bring this really up in the real meeting, but anyhow, Larry came to me the other day and he said, we had some Metro Public Works person coming and picking up all the signs and all of the signs in people's yards in Belmead, not realizing that we thought that was perfectly okay. And Larry said he had a few homeowners that were very disturbed about it. So he called Metro Public Works and they, after digging around for a while, he found who was responsible and sent them back out there to put every sign back.
Okay.
Larry, you want to make any comment about that?
No, sir, that's exactly what they did. And it was a little investigation, but we were able to find out who took them. A Metro inspector.
Oh, so they did it on purpose.
Yes, Metro Public Works. Yep.
But no, they didn't. I don't think they did it on purpose. They just didn't know
They thought they were in
Belmead.
Metro.
Okay.
They didn't
So
know
they
the
need an
boundaries.
education, Tom, and this wasn't a brand new person. Larry told me this was a veteran of Public Works.
Well, Larry, do you need me to holler him in, or are you good
No,
now?
sir.
No,
No,
let it. He
Yeah,
said
we got
that
him a map of boundaries
One of
and
the
they've got it.
residents was upset, but Larry calmed them down, and so everybody got their signs back too. So
Okay, good. Well, hopefully they learned the lesson. I'm surprised they would do that. But
well, I just don't think they knew where they were. Got to teach them about the boundaries over here. When they see those blue lights flashing, they better know they're under camera.
I can't even imagine that they don't go into Belmead and not know they're in Belmead, but hey, I'll take that.
Well, we know you know when you're in Belmead.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I think Haley will join us, and so we won't worry about her right now.
I
No,
just
she's
texted her.
What's that?
she's in Hawaii.
Well,
Wow.
this works from Hawaii.
That's no excuse.
I know.
What? I wish I had that excuse.
I know.
Beth, did she say she was going to miss the meeting?
No, I had emailed her. I didn't know she was on spring break there. And she said they don't switch to daylight savings time. And we did. She's all confused. She's trying to get into the legislative meetings and she said, I can't time it right. I don't know.
I just texted her and she's at the Tiki Bar.
That would be a great place for her to join this meeting. I love that.
Ooh. I'm
I thought we
jealous.
get started so we can head to the Tiki Bar.
There you go.
The one on Knowlesville Road or whatever. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and start. And if she can figure out the time, she can join us. We'll start off with the pledge, and if we could all either stand or at least, we got two flags that we can look at today. So we'll go ahead and stand, and a lot of us will be off camera, but I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
United
America,
States of America,
and to the
republic
which
which
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to the March 17th St. Patrick's Day meeting of the Board of Commissioners. And without further ado, we'll open the public comments. I know that Tom Druffel has some comments he'd like to make, and then we'll let anybody else make any comments from the public that they'd like to make at this time.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Good to see you all. Happy St. Patrick's Day. As we've started, I got my green on. I'm ready to go. I'm going to just highlight one or two things quickly. One could take along, but the capital spending plan was approved for $474 million. I did vote against it. Prior plans were the $200 to $300 million range, and I felt like this was just too aggressive during the pandemic. So I was one of 7 votes against it, billing until we knew our sales tax projections we were being a little aggressive too early. A couple things included in that are $100 million for the high school move. So the money is funded completely for the new high school that will go from Hillwood to Bellevue. That's an expensive high school, but it's committed now. And the other thing that is, there's some a lot of infrastructure projects that are all very good projects. I, again, just felt like it was a little expensive, but there's $121 million in transportation. One of the key things there is, I think will be of value, is there's a light synchronization component in there that will help us, and hopefully we'll get the one on Harding there to work with Whitebridge. So that is pretty good if we get this, and I understand it should be pretty valuable. So expensive projects, but all infrastructure needs that were definitely needed over the last couple of years. Nothing more than that. There's a couple things. The operating budget will come out in April. The property taxes will be reassessed, reappraised this year, just for everybody to know, which adds a little confusion as we get into the operating budget, since we it's actually reset every year. So the 34% increase last year is technically reset. I might have to fight the battle to keep it reset, but the reality is technically it's reset this year too. So we don't know what the property tax increase is going to be. The fund and cash balances have gone up, and that was one of the larger reason or greater reasons we had the larger sales or the property tax increase. So hoping that component may go away a little bit, but we still don't know the projections on the sales tax. So long story short, we'll learn a lot more in the next couple of months from the operating budget. And I'll be glad to take any questions, or if you email me with questions, I'll be glad to follow up with you.
Anybody have any questions of Tom? Have we heard anything, Tom, from the state about how the any monies that we receive from the stimulus package will be divvied up into?
No, not yet. Usually they get a committee together. We'll probably hear from the mayor, and they'll probably, like we had a CARES committee for the last time. I would suspect as we get the detail, we'll get more a better understanding of what that would look like, Mayor. So I'll be glad to pass that information on as soon as I hear.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions from Tom? Other members, other people from the public that would like to make any comment, if you would introduce yourself, and we'll go from there. Patsy, are you on, or you got any comments?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Joining in if you don't mind.
Pardon me?
I'm just joining in if you
Oh,
don't
that's
mind.
fine. No, that's fine. I see Ron Ferris and Pam Trella and Gray is on here. So anybody have any comments? Any other comments? Well, with that, we'll close the public comments portion and go into the regular meeting with the minutes being approved, hopefully. Entertain a motion for their approval. Don't everybody speak at one time.
Mayor, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Rusty Moore, I move for approval of the minutes of our meeting from February the 17th.
Louise
Thank you,
Bryan, I
Rusty. Is there a
second.
Louise is second. And any further discussion on the minutes? Well, all in favor, say aye. Roll call vote.
Louise Bryan, aye.
I guess it's me, Jim Hunt, aye.
Rusty Moore, aye.
Bob, you're on mute, but I saw your lips moving, Bob. But you're on mute.
Okay,
So
Bob.
that will go.
Hey, aye.
Approval of the minutes. With that, Public Works. Larry
Mayor,
Smith?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Any questions or concerns on the report?
Larry, how much longer do you think it's going to take NES to finish getting the lights up? They look great.
That's a good question. I've reached out to them. They had some emergency work they had to pull off and do. And they're telling me they're gonna get back on it. I just hope it's sooner than later myself. But they did not give me a time frame.
And then I know that you had mentioned that you have mentioned to NES about a number of the poles that are not as straight as we might like them. And now that we've got these new pretty lights, it's sort of calling attention to some of the crooked poles. Any update on what they're saying about that?
Trustee, I've got a report at the end of the meeting on that.
Okay, thanks.
Larry, I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
What streets are included in the snow removal?
It's
Okay.
hills, curves. I'd have to get I've got the list over here by me, but I'd have to get the whole list. It's hills, curves, and primaries. And it's on the webpage.
Hills, curves, and primary, okay.
Yes, sir.
How much, okay, it's all in unit prices. I mean, it's no specific total contract amount, correct?
No, sir. It's and you can't go by one plow one time and so forth, because it's based on how much ice and what we've got and what we've got to do to get rid of it. It can be different a little bit different each time they come and scrape.
Were you pretty pleased with the job they did this year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Who was it? Who has the contract?
Sammy Gibbs.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
They've had it for quite a while, and they do a really good job with what we need.
I guess we had a lot of secondary roads where people were calling in, weren't they?
Yes, sir. We had a few.
Yeah.
But not as many as you would think.
Considering we had several different snowfalls that we had to call them back out on, I think the price on that was, we probably should feel very lucky with the, best about 70 something thousand, 73,000 maybe.
It's in the back.
You're muted, Beth. Beth, you're muted.
This as bad as everybody. No, we were pleased with the price. We thought it would be closer to $100,000 and it wasn't. So that was a pleasant surprise.
Larry, they left a piece of equipment out there for a few days. I was going to get on that thing and clean my driveway, but I decided I might get seen by somebody.
Mayor, I just wanted to back up for a second. I know that we have a number of people from the public and neighborhoods, and I know we've closed the public comments, but I think it's important that everyone realize that is the time to make a public comment. If you wanted to make a comment in the meeting, that is the time, and I don't know if we want to make sure everyone understands that, because there's not another time in the agenda that's open for public comment.
Well, I didn't officially close it, so we'll have, if anyone, if Pam, I know that the Trello's been going back to some correspondence going on. Do you have anything you want to say at this time? Ray, you've unmuted. Do you have anything that you want to say?
My only comment is it's very difficult being in the public when you can't see the previous month's minutes and you don't know what was so. And on as far as snow removal, we're not listening to any. We don't have anything in front of us or on the agenda, and it's hard to make a comment ahead of time when we don't really know. A report that might say, well, we plowed 3 days and spent, $100,000 or what have you. So that's why sometimes you don't get our comments till after the fact, because we don't have enough information to ask. And that's
well, I really like people joining in on this. What I would recommend though is that you have access to this agenda, and there's several things that are on that agenda that I think are enlightening. So I would encourage looking at that agenda prior to the meeting. Beth,
Oh,
you have any?
I've read it. I mean, I've read it a couple times, but there's not a lot of very specific information. So that's why it's difficult when when Rusty said, well, there are no comments. Well, it's because we don't really, anyway, that's just my comment.
Well, I understand, and we've been pretty liberal about letting people comment when we got into something that was more difficult, that we really needed that. So we hadn't closed that off totally. So we do allow that, but we do that on a as needed basis. So we'll see what happens as we progress in the meeting.
Good afternoon. This is Marshall Sanders from Walnut Drive.
Yes, Marshall.
310 Walnut Drive. And I know that Pam Trell is on, and I just wanted to sort of speak up on behalf of the neighbors of Walnut Drive. And we appreciate you all taking the time to read our late night memo to you all. And just wondering if you all have any comments on that. And just to know our next step is we do plan to submit a formal appeal letter to the Historic Zoning Commission this week. And so just wanted to chime in to see if y'all had any comment or on our procedure, on our process, if there's anything you all need from us.
When we get to the building zoning and planning, I thought I would ask Lyle Patterson if he had any comments on the historic zoning, and Doug Berry is up there. He's ready to go. So anyway, we'll open that up for discussion at that time, Marshall. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything else from Larry? With that, we've got Louise is going to comment on the update on the master plan. And
Hi everybody. So good to see so many faces on tonight's meeting. Thank you for being here. I know everyone's time is very precious. As many of you know, we're nearing the last few months of the long-term planning, which is basically a series of recommendations. It's not a series of actions. It is a series of recommendations based on citizen input and strategic planning from Kimley Horn Consulting Firm. They plan to present to the public in May with short, medium, and long-term recommendations. Again, nothing set in stone. It's all recommendations that will be put forth to the public for another set of outreach and feedback. However, a few projects, as some of you know, were in progress and in process before we hired Kimley Horn. These projects were put on hold, and I think residents have been very patient in waiting for us to hire a firm and go through the correct process and strategy to get to this point. But COVID actually has enhanced the need for some additional traffic calming and walkability in our neighborhoods. And I think there are a series of 3 or up to 4 projects that I think we can add to the front of the line, if you will. I think these projects are consistent with what we are seeing in the long range plan. We know that they are supported by our residents, and in some cases, most cases, we've already invested in the studies, the traffic studies with Metro, as well as with the civil engineering firms. So I just want to recommend a few things that I think we should move forward, and I wanted to bring them forward to the commission this evening. The first one would be some turning changes. And this is in page 9 of the packet. I'm going to read this out loud for everybody. I'm certainly happy to also email this to everyone after we finish speaking about it. This would include making a right turn only on Jackson Boulevard onto Harding Pike. We think this will assist in reducing the amount of cut-through traffic on Harding. In conjunction with this, we propose to add a left turn signal on Belmead Boulevard and Harding Pike. We hope this would help to better distribute traffic and larger construction vehicles off of Jackson and onto Belmead Boulevard. That's number 1. Number 2 would be traffic calming measures on Linwood Boulevard as well as Jackson Boulevard. As you know, Linwood Boulevard right now has a series of delineators which have been put there as part of a series of traffic studies. And the delineators have worked, actually. I was able to meet with the chief last week, and we have 3 different sets of traffic studies which show that Linwood is actually suffering from higher traffic volume, not necessarily higher traffic speeds. Although when the delineators were put in place, the speed limit on the street did come down somewhat. Residents are not happy with the delineators because of the way they look, and they've been hit a few times. So we recommend putting in place a what's called a demonstration project. This project would be a landscape traffic calming design called a chicane, which would, thank you, which would basically create curves in the street. The first image on the street, the screen is showing a curve which you purposely create. Could you put up the second image, Lyle?
Actually, Louise, this is the only one I have.
Oh, shucks. Okay. This, what's on the screen right now would be the final version of a chicane, which is where you actually create a strong curve and you create a yield in a street, so that in a 2-way street, one car would have to yield to an oncoming traffic. In order to test this, what we're recommending is putting in place a demonstration project, which would be a temporary tactile, reversible, removable.
I
Yeah,
take
here we
that
go.
back.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if I can enlarge it, but
Okay, so this is an example of what we would call a demonstration project, something that we would test on Linwood and possibly on Jackson. Instead of the stone curb, we would use delineators, and we would put some green vegetation in the center to show that in the longer term, it would be a beautiful and aesthetically pleasing traffic calming device.
Louise, is that temporary?
Well, what we're proposing is to begin it as a temporary demonstration project, to let it be tested on Linwood and possibly on Jackson, so that we can show residents, so we can test its efficacy and efficiency. This would change the way traffic moves on Linwood, and it would change it for both residents and for Amazon drivers and Uber drivers alike. So we need to be sure that this is what people want. But at the end phase, this would be something that's in the Bell Meet Together toolkit. It's beautiful. Resident experts like Gave and Duke could design it with the beautiful stonework. The Ceres Society could recommend plantings that would blend in with the other plantings in Belmead. And this would create a diversion in the street. It would not be the same experience as going straight down Linwood. We think it would reduce volume as well as speed on that street. So it would be a short-term demonstration project, tested, say, for a month to 6 weeks. And then we'd get feedback from residents as well as from chief to see if it worked and what the experience was. And then we would decide if we would invest in a longer-term chicane design.
Louise, this example that's up on the screen now, is that a yielding to the traffic coming the opposite way? Who yields to whom?
Whoever
gets there first.
Yes, I mean, there's definitely some communication. It would have to have really good signage, and probably in the first day or two would have to have some police direction on how it's being used. But they're used in all different cities, all over big cities and small cities. And it's being used right now on Linwood across from West Hampton, on a smaller scale, on a street that's not as crowded as Linwood Boulevard that we're talking about. But over time, the person goes through who has the person has the right of way who goes through. If there's another car coming, you would yield to that car.
Okay.
Louise, this is Rusty. Do we have any sort of information study or idea of if this reduces Linwood traffic, where that traffic would go? Like, would it go to Westview or?
Well, I mean, Westview's my street, so
Yes.
I mean, I'm not naive here, but part of the study I think we would do is we'd work with Chief to see what's happening. That's part of the demonstration. So we would study it during those few weeks to see kind of what's happening.
Oh,
But
that's
no,
why I
we
think,
we don't have any idea exactly what would happen. We don't.
well, I think the demonstration and the test makes a lot of sense before we implemented something, something like this, because it is new, and we certainly wouldn't want something that we do in one area to create a new issue somewhere else.
I mean, the issue with volume is that traffic engineers try to distribute the volume. I mean, I can't represent that creating these traffic calming designs will remove volume from Belmead, but we can hope to better distribute the volume. I did talk to Kay Lang today. She's the Neighborhood Watch captain on that block. And what I told Kay was that, before we would even do this, the next step after tonight, if we get an okay, would be to meet with people from that street to say, this is what we're thinking, So I think it would be a second layer of block engagement to say, this is what we're thinking, describe what a demonstration project is, how it works, the fact that it's reversible, and with the thought that, by the end of May, beginning of June, we would have a better idea of what really belongs there.
That's a great report. You've got another item too, right?
Yep. Yeah. So this is traffic calming on Linwood. The other option we would consider would be a traffic island on Jackson. And the reason we can't do a traffic island on Linwood right now is that we have 20 feet of pavement. We have more pavement on Jackson, so we could do a traffic island demonstration on Jackson. Again, building something that could be reversed, but just to see if we could create 2 more narrow lanes, forcing people into a more narrow lane to slow down, how that would impact traffic on that street. And then finally, we do think that there is a strong opportunity to proceed with 2 sidewalk gaps. The first one is the space between Linwood along the Eskin property, which bounds to Metro Nashville. There's just 2 spots that are really compelling and short in terms of sidewalks that could be pretty impactful. And I would recommend that we go ahead and begin that process to look at those numbers to complete that.
Do you have any ideas about funding and timing? I guess you're saying all these 3 we should look at these, proceeding with them now?
I am. I mean, the sidewalk will be some money. I think the first 2 will be signage and signaling. The second one will be cones, delineators, possibly some temporary signage. I'm prepared to go and get some concrete numbers after this, but I just wanted to get some feedback from the commissioners and the public.
Jim and Louise, Rusty again. And so I'm going to ask a procedural question. Maybe Doug joins into this. So let's take item 1 on this list. We have in the past taken the action to approve this. And then as we began this master plan project, we decided to kind of hold off on that for a moment to make sure that our master planners didn't say, well, guys, that's not what you should have done. And we could have spent that money in a different way. It's my understanding and impression that with our master planners now and looking at everything, that we're far enough down the road to think and to see that our plan and what we've already voted on and approved for the left turn option off of Belmead Boulevard and eliminating the left turn on Jackson is the appropriate way to go. So my procedural question is this: what do we need to do, if anything, to move that along now?
Beth, do you have any comments about, since it has been approved, we're just talking about moving the
Right.
date up and whether it has
You
been.
just need to let the staff know that you want to go ahead with it, and then we will proceed with it. And KCI was the engineers that did all the design work on the no left turn on Jackson and the left turn on Belmead Boulevard. So we've got all of those documents. It's just a matter of getting with them again, getting up to speed where we left off, and then proceeding with bidding the work out. If the commissioners say, go ahead, that's what the staff will do.
Beth,
Go ahead, Bob.
Beth, if what you're talking about doing is getting some contract documents together to get some hard numbers on this, correct?
Right, we could bid it out.
Yeah. And if we don't like the numbers, we vote against, I mean, if some of the commissioners don't like the numbers, will we vote yes or no on it?
Well, if we get bids, you would just reject all the bids then if you're not going to do it.
Okay, we'll have that
I
option.
have some numbers from a couple months ago when we stopped this, so I'll go back and look. And we can let you know what the estimates were.
Yeah.
For the metal streetlight pole and the signalization adjustments on Belmead Boulevard. But once, if we bid it out, we have bidders that submit their bids. If you don't want to do the project, then you would just reject all the bids.
What was the last, when we talked about the timing of the signals on Belmead Boulevard for the left turn, that was going to be an element that might take some time to actually get that done. Did they give us a time frame once we gave them the go ahead?
Metro Public Works was going to work with the engineers on that because really they control that signal. So I think they, at that time, a couple months ago, they were ready to work with us. Now, I don't know where they are with their other projects right now. We'd have to kind of go back and kind of start over a little bit with everybody and see what they're doing and see what their schedules are. Hopefully, this isn't a real complicated project and they'll be able to get with us pretty quickly.
Well, didn't they tell us that once we made the decision to do that, it might be harder to reverse that?
Yes, if we're going to do it, then they said you can't change your mind in a couple months and say, well, we don't like this. Let's go back to right turn only on Belmead Boulevard. They said it's going to be permanent.
Is there any way for us to do, we'll call it a test, like using officers to direct traffic during that period of time, or is that just be too unwieldy?
I mean, there's mandatory signage you put up when you make this change and you leave it up for weeks to train people that there's no longer two right turns. They did not recommend any kind of a test phase where you have police officers out there. If we decide to do it, we just have to put up the signage and then probably have increased police presence there once the signage is up and the traffic signal is working, just to make sure nobody's in the wrong lane and things like that. But the signs are going to be the coaches once we do it.
Louise, did Kimley Horn have any input about what might happen, or the good, the bad, the ugly of that?
Well, they have not looked at the left turn on Belmead because that was already pretty much studied.
It was engineered.
Yeah, they did say that the possibility of the chicanes or the one-way yield on Linwood would require significant signage to let people know because it's a significant change to that street.
So what action do we need to, I'm certainly in favor of going ahead with the project that we have already voted on and approved. So what action do we need to take as a commission today to say, let's move on with that project?
the funding of the projects possibly would be, those would be, we'd have to move them from next fiscal year to this fiscal year, I guess, if we're going to be paying for them now. Would that, Beth, does that create a problem? Lee, I'll ask both of you that.
Well, certainly for number one, the turnings on Jackson and Belmead Boulevard, I don't think that's going to be a high cost project.
No, no.
So that one we can probably start on right away and make sure it gets done as quickly as possible, hopefully before the end of the fiscal year. Some of the others are going to take, we're going to have to start from scratch because we're going to have people design them and engineer them. So actually we may get all the design work and the engineering work done by the end of the fiscal year. The actual shovel in the ground won't be until after July 1. So the spending will occur in the fiscal year. But if we can get the preliminary work done to bid it out before the end of the fiscal year, we'll be in good shape.
Beth, did we have this, and I'm really focused, as you can tell, on this Belmead Boulevard turn. Did we have it budgeted for this year since we approved it before?
I believe we did, but we may have spent some of that money on a different project, not all of it. So that I need to go back and look at the numbers.
Rusty, you're talking about the sidewalk, right?
No, I'm talking about the left turn on the Belmead Boulevard. That, you know, again, is something that's kind of, to use a legal term, asked and answered, because we have already looked at the project. We've decided that we wanted to go forward. And then again, I think it was very the right decision to say, hey, let's not proceed right this moment, just so we make sure that we're not falling a miss of something that might be in this new master planning. But now that we sort of feel good about that, and it definitely, you know, I think we believe, based on our votes in the past, I think we all 100% approved it, that it's the right thing to do. It's, you know, what do we do today to say, and I'm only talking about item one now.
Right.
But for item one, what do we do to say, let's go?
Hey, Beth, sorry, about if it was in the budget or not for this year, that's actually part of the amendment that I've prepared, is to take that money out of the budget for the left turn signal.
Well, Rusty, if I understand your question, and I think Beth's earlier comment is correct. I think you just vote to authorize it, and then the staff would feel like they were sufficiently supported to go ahead and put together project documents and so forth.
So with that, and Louise, I'm not trying to jump in. I'd like to just get one thing off the list because it to me has a different character. So Mayor, I would just make a motion that we no longer hold off, if that's the way to make a motion. We no longer have our hold on our project at the end of Belmead Boulevard for the left turn, and then eliminating the left turn on Jackson, and that we authorize our staff to move forward with that project that we've already approved.
Doug, what with this not being an action item, can we go ahead and do that?
I think it's sufficiently described in the agenda to take action.
I think we've already really taken all the action on it anyway, in essence.
Yeah.
So, do you think we need a motion? Do you think we just can proceed?
No, I think for everybody to feel good about it, you need a motion on these, whatever items you want to go ahead with. But you know, but there's no, I don't think it's a problem, Mayor. Long story short, to have it
Good,
taken.
thank you.
Yeah.
Rusty has made that motion. Everybody understand the motion? Anyone want to make a second to that motion?
I got a question.
Yeah, Bob?
Does that mean it will be taken out of future budgets and become part of the fiscal year 21 and to the and to be done this year? Does that mean that or not?
Yes.
Well, Rusty only wanted the voting on number one, which would be a pretty low cost, insignificant number when it really got down to the total
right.
numbers. Would you think, Rusty?
Well, but what I understand from Beth and Lee is that it is in our budget that we have an item today to take it out, but that it has been in our budget that we've been working with previously. So I think this is just I think this is kind of a memo from the commissioners to the staff that we're ready to move on with this project.
Lee, is it in the budget for this year, the year we're in now? In the budget?
It was in the original budget, yes. And once we decided to do the master plan, that expense was put on hold. So it is in my budget amendment for tonight.
Okay.
Of course, I don't have to make that.
Bob, it doesn't really increase anything. It just shifts the timing of it. If there's really any increase at all, we may not get into any of this during this fiscal year. I know we'd like to, but I don't know whether we would. So Rusty, we've got a motion, and we need a second for that motion. We're sorry we should have gotten that before Bob.
This is Bob. I second that motion.
We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye. Roll call, please.
Louise Bryan, aye.
Jim Hunt, aye.
Rusty Moore, aye.
Bob Weigel, aye.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
What do we want to? That's item one. Now, Rusty, you want to talk about 2 and 3, and now 3 is going to take more funding, and I guess, but
no, Louise, I apologize. I've sort of jumped in.
No, I appreciate the momentum. No, go ahead. Go. I appreciate it.
I think that one was just a special thing. And I just really think if we're just going to take them one at a time, doing a demonstration project on Linwood makes a lot of sense. And anything we do to test something before we put in hardscape and change our infrastructure, I think makes a lot of sense. And we're a body of the citizens, and we have had so much input from the Linwood residents about this issue that I don't know that we can what the appropriate action item is today, but I certainly favor the demonstration project there. And I actually think that if we're talking about demonstration projects, I significantly favor doing the demonstration for Jackson to see how that works. We consistently have issues on that street, and why not try to address them?
I mean, how I see this working is to work with Kimley Horn through the block captains on both those streets and have an old-fashioned meeting in the street with some visuals of what the demonstration would look like and what the final beautified version would look like, but be able to talk through what we're doing, what a demonstration project is, how long it would last, and how we're going to test it. But it would be very much an engaged project with the people of those blocks.
I got one question. This is Bob. What's the name? First of all, what's the name of that thing?
It's a chicane.
Chicane.
Chicane, okay. If they put in a chicane on 400 block of Linwood, have they looked at the dangers of the one over at Linwood Boulevard and Linwood Terrace, I guess it is? Is that Linwood Boulevard and Linwood Lane?
Has it?
Every other month, that tree's getting hit down there.
Oh, the traffic island. Yeah, it gets mowed through sometimes. Yeah.
That's not the chicane though.
But that's actually a traffic island, right?
Chicane, okay.
But it does have the risk of a car mounting the curb. And I mean, what happened on Linwood 2 weeks ago was that a car was distracted. They don't think the car was speeding, but it was distracted. And in order to avoid the delineators, the car took out 2 mailboxes.
Yeah, I'm not too crazy with the delineators either, and I'm just not familiar with the chicane, and it looks to me like it's a potential danger thing. with the, whoever gets there first kind of thing, like Jim was talking about. I don't know.
Well, that's why we do the demonstration. I also question about nighttime. What happens? Would it be lighted? Would it have some landscape lights or something to make sure that, it's dark down there on some areas of Linwood, and people
Yep, it's a
might
good
run right
point.
into it that aren't familiar with it. So that would be one of the concerns. And that's all involved in the testing aspect. And but just make sure that, and we probably ought to call on Chuck, because he's gone over there and he's
Yeah.
talked to the neighbors also. Chuck, do you feel like this is feasible?
Sure, I do. I think, in speaking with the residents in that area, they have definitely been patient. I know the delineators were designed to be a temporary thing, and it's kind of been almost 2 years now. So I definitely think that a testing of a new engineering plan is definitely would definitely be pretty beneficial. And I would like to pull some data before we install on Westview, the current traffic volume on Westview. And once that's installed, we'll see, if it increases the flow. We should have some data before and after, in my opinion.
Any questions?
Mayor, maybe with this one and perhaps the next one, since there's not been an earlier vote of any kind authorizing this, and it's not on the agenda for action, maybe it's a little bit rushed to vote on these tonight. That's just kind of my gut feeling.
There was never any intention really of voting on them. I think
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I thought
Rusty got us moving, and I'm sure that Louise is happy about that. But Louise, would you be okay with us just making sure that we've got all the testing ideas out in the open, and so that we don't create any danger for people, and make this an action item for next month?
So would you like me to?
Why don't you get with Chuck and get with Kay and you all discuss the best way to present this. And I think with Patsy, you might want to get with it. Is Anne Marie, is she your neighborhood watch person, Patsy?
Yes.
Okay. Anne Marie McNamara. So and I think she'd be really good and helpful to you on that too. And I'm sure Patsy wouldn't mind voicing in on that too. So we don't need a vote on deferring, because we really hadn't got anything. We're just all agreeing that we'll bring it up next month as an action item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor and Louise, one more question from Rusty. So the number 3 item, these sidewalk items, these are not sidewalks we've previously approved. The only one we've previously approved is the extension at Harding Place. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Thanks, Beth. I see you nodding. So, okay, I'm muting again.
Yeah, I think as an action item, Beth, what would we need to do? And Larry, we need, for it to become an action item, we just get bids. That would be the action item, right? So we don't need.
Well, first we would need authorization to proceed.
That's what I mean. That would
And
be
then
the
we
action
would,
item. But the
bids.
cost of that, and the fact is there's going to be some right-of-way issues on that with the walls on.
In front of St. George's.
Yeah, well, down in front of Cowan's property, that the wall down there, we'd have to figure out what. And then Eskin's going to be some, I guess, some clearing of some shrubbery down there too.
Right, they've got some privet hedges, I think, that are in the way.
So those would be items to be considered, but the action item is just to move forward with figuring out how to do it, right?
We'd have to get a firm to design it and work out all the right-of-way issues, then we would bid it.
Okay.
But we need to meet with St. George's too.
I got you.
I've reached out several times to St. George's, and I've had a phone conversation and an email conversation with Craig Lane, who's the senior warden. And we just haven't gotten the parent company on the conversation yet, but we're working on that. And Steve, I need you to be in that call at that time, but we just haven't gotten the right people together yet, but we're working on that.
Yeah, I know that stormwater I guess that stormwater that goes, that there was that big issue they had down there. And that's, Steve, you worked very closely with that project, I know. So how do we cross over that, I guess, with the sidewalk is gonna be.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else on discussion item number 2? And Louise, thank you so much for doing this. I love getting this thing off the start rather than waiting one day in the future and just saying go. This gives us some momentum going into it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any way I could just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah, Patsy.
The island on Jackson, where on Jackson would that be?
Well, we're not sure. That's part of the discussion we'd have with residents. Yeah,
Okay.
again, it's just, these are just ideas right now. It's just ideas that's part of why we would engage the block captain and the people in the streets to say where would it go, and where you would consider putting the demonstration island, maybe a different place where you might put the long-term island.
I just thought I'd missed something, so thank you.
Nope. And Patsy, we know not to do anything without you being involved in it.
No, I've been out of the picture, so I was just hoping I didn't miss anything.
No, we're not going to move too far. I mean, I think Linwood has been so narrowed down into where that problem is. Jackson, we're a little bit more fluid there, I think, because you've also got the speed humps, and where we did not want to proceed necessarily with that on Linwood at this time. So I think this gives us a little bit different view of Jackson, but it's still we know how needed it is. So. Okay, the next item is consideration of citizen survey. I know Bob Weigel at the retreat commented about some areas in order to reduce expenses. And Bob, you want to talk a little bit about that, and then I've got a suggestion after that.
Okay. Yes, we 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a retreat, and we had some, I was looking for some ways to save money, and which I think that's my fiduciary responsibility as a commissioner. And right now what's the name of the company that does the debris pickup? I can't.
Park Company.
Park Company.
Park Company, yeah. They picks up the debris brought out to the street. When I say debris, we're talking about small limbs and maybe leaves, bagged leaves and things like that. They come out once a week to every house in Belmead and pick that up, and we pay them every week. I think it's a gross overstatement of what they need to be doing. I think half that time of operation is plenty to rid the city of excess debris at each home. So I'm saying we cut it in half and save a few dollars. You know, I'm open to a survey of the residents of Belmead to see if they agree with that analysis or not. You know, I know Jim thinks it's a nice thing to have. It's a nice service to have, but I think it's an overstatement. I think it's just as bad to overdo it as it is to underdo it. So I'm against it.
I've had some time to rethink that, Bob. What I didn't want to do, very frankly, I didn't want to run a survey with just one question. I may be wrong, but but we've been careful in doing surveys that we try to get a lot of participation, and I'd rather extend the survey and have maybe 2 or 3 questions on it that would be really easy to answer.
I'm all for that. I think that's a good idea.
But we'll pose some questions and let commissioners decide what they wanted to include in the survey. And we'll let Larry get involved, Chuck get involved in that, but we can get that done really quickly and get the survey done. But I agree, Bob, we need to be looking at our expenses, but we also need to, we don't want to wear the neighbors out with surveys either. So if we can do one that got 3 or 4 things that we think are pretty hot items, we'll do that. Survey Monkey is pretty easy to do.
I know it's not going to solve all the world's problems by cutting that in half, but we could figure out another way to spend that money. Little bit helps. Pardon me?
We could find other ways to spend that money if we didn't just put it in the savings, so.
So I'm all for it, and I would appreciate a survey.
Good deal. Thank you.
And what exactly is that dollar amount saved at 50%?
Well, we don't know. We would have, Beth can inquire. I think our contract runs through November. Not that we couldn't approach them now, but and I think, Beth, you could probably approach them, get some idea of what would be the cost implications of that.
Right, we're paying $12,700 a month right now. So.
But I wouldn't expect it to be one half of that because the crews he's got crews that would have to divert some to some other. They may be able to pick up one group 1 week and one group the next week. That might let them keep their crews working. So I think that's a consideration. I don't think anybody would mind that if they went to if they agreed to lessen the number of pickups if we could alternate weeks to help the park company with it.
I would think, just from my past experience and costs of construction and everything, I would think you'd say 40%.
That's probably about right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
40% per month.
We'll proceed with that. That is not an action item, but we'll consider it like it's an action item. We'll proceed with getting the information and getting it back to everybody else before we do the survey.
And
Thanks.
Mayor, I would just throw into that, Louise, if there are any sort of specific questions that we want a broader answer for Kimley Horn related to the master plan, if we're doing a survey, I certainly agree, we don't want to kill the residents with surveys because they begin to lose their effect. So if there's something we're looking for an opinion about, I don't know what that would be, but this might be a time, if we are going to do a survey, to throw something like that in.
I agree. And then I guess I would just add to that, if we're doing a survey because we anticipate having to cut cost or to be, more conservative stewards of this because the hall tax is going away, we need an introductory paragraph or text which describes what we're doing, and we need to be able to have the actual dollars and cents and to show what we're doing. But we have to be able to explain to residents what's happening, the timing, the current tax rate, what it's going to be, and what a fully funded Belmead on a full tax rate's going to be. These are numbers that we're going to have to be talking about all the time from now on.
Jim, Jim, do we need to be ultra honest with them and tell them about the fact that we misread the hall tax was going way faster than we thought it was? Or
well, it's not really going away faster. It just, well, I guess it accelerated but it's doing the same thing. It's doing it. I think we do need to disclose that, but I don't see that being a major issue since we do have reserves that could pick up the difference in the meantime. Okay. I don't want to make this survey just though on that basis. I think that it could be an update of things that have arisen in Belmead together that need to be clarified, that maybe there's some questions that have arisen, something like that too. So it's not just trying to cut costs. I'd rather look at it as
Jim, I know you're very good at these surveys, and I talked to Haley a week or two ago, and she'd like to be involved in the survey. If you
she get back from Hawaii, we'll let her be involved.
That's right.
Okay, Bob. Thanks very much. With that, I've asked our new chief, Chuck, to make some comments about his first few weeks on the job and any comments he might have and any insights he might have. And Chuck, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I've tried to hit the ground running. I've been pretty busy in the first couple weeks here. One thing that outside of the 400 block of Linwood that we've kind of started to take a look at is the current LPR and camera systems that we have. Tom, Beth, Lyle, and I all met just want to make sure that our existing camera system's working the way it's intended to. If there's anything we can do to make it more efficient, effective, we certainly want to do that before we look at spending money to expanding to other sites. So that's kind of one thing we have that I've been working on. And then one challenge we have, we with the promotions and John Carter retiring yesterday, we definitely have to hire some folks and promote some people. He was a sergeant. Of course, I was a sergeant. So we'll have two promotions, 2 new hires that are coming. Hopefully we can get some really good qualified people here. And once we get those people trained, we'll kind of move everybody and promote and all at once and move forward and keep this thing going.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions want to ask Chuck as we get into his report? Chuck, thank you.
Thank
so
you.
Happy to have you, not missing a beat.
Thanks, Chuck.
Chuck, monthly reports.
Yes, sir. Everyone should have a copy of the report. Be happy to answer any questions or concerns you might have about them.
I'm not sure who answers this report. It says county clerk's monthly statistics. Sometimes the chief would answer this, and sometimes Beth would answer. Who is responsible for this sheet? That's it. That's page 11.
The court clerk, Kim Huffines.
Okay, she's not here to answer then, so right?
No, but
No, yeah.
between Chuck and I, we can probably answer your questions, Bob.
All right. Page 11, citations written. Why are they so low for February?
If you remember February, we had the ice storm. We also have been a little bit shorthanded at work.
Okay.
Less officers on the patrol. To that point, I pulled some, I noticed that as well, Commissioner, and I pulled some data for March, from March 1st to March 15th. Just 15 days in, we're already over that number there. So I think you'll see a nice increase for March.
That's good. Then the next question is, I don't know if this has been on this report before. It may have been. I just hadn't noticed it. Driving school scheduled and driving school attended. Has that always been on there?
It probably has, but it's probably zero for quite some time due to the pandemic. We're not doing any in-person driving schools here. We haven't even had court for the last couple of months.
Yeah, I know it's zeros all the way through. Yeah. Okay. Okay. It's pandemic related. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I had.
Thanks, Chuck. Rusty Moore again, and congratulations on your position. We are thrilled to have you step up and in this new position, and I know you'll have a number of challenges as you move forward, but I think you'll also have a lot of opportunities. And so I'd like to put you on the spot for just a second and just to kind of tell us some of the things that you're thinking about. Always, every meeting, one of my biggest concerns is the way people speed and use the wrong lane on Bellmead Boulevard and other places. And so I'd just like to ask you what you're thinking about and what some of your ideas are for enforcement of our traffic rules.
Rusty never misses an opportunity to get that in. This is perfect.
Sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bryan and I had a meeting and we discussed that very issue. I think it's there's kind of 3 aspects to traffic safety, and those are engineering, enforcement, and education. And as police officers, we can absolutely do enforcement and we can absolutely educate folks, but we're not engineers. And that's one thing that I'm really excited about coming on, to be able to have a voice in the master plan, because we're going to actually have engineers. And whether it's a signage issue about the left lane, I know that that's an issue, but there's so many people that drive through Belmead, and maybe their first time. And when the officers, they absolutely do enforce that, but it becomes, people are just blown away. Like, why are you stopping me? And so whether that's a better signage or what, I'm excited to hopefully remedy that with this master plan.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think, I'm always encouraging more presence during rush hour. And I know that you're spread thin and that's hard to do. You can't be on every street. But I think you would do well to have more presence during those rush hour times on the boulevard and other places. So thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you so much.
I assume that since Belmead is only 3 square miles, everybody's getting rained on right now, pretty heavy. So we'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
Chuck, we've got 2 action items. One is the request to purchase replacement speed monitoring signs, and the second is the request to purchase in-car camera. You want to kind of lead us into that a little bit?
Sure. The first one, the radar signs, as most of you know, we utilize those signs to go out into the neighborhood and collect data. Those signs can be set to flash, or they can also be put into a covert mode to see what how much volume, especially with the changes that are coming to the 400 block. We've been using them quite a bit. We had 4 of those that we deployed into different locations of Belmead. And during a storm sometime back, 2 of them were damaged by a storm and were unfortunately unable to be repaired. We did file an insurance claim with Public Entity Partners. They settled that claim for $5,562. So I've attached 3 quotes from different companies, and my recommendation would be that we use Stalker radar. 2 brand new units with a 2-year warranty is $5,850. So it would only cost us about $288 to get 2 brand new machines. And the ones that were damaged were 3 or 4 or 5 years old. So not a really bad deal for us, in my opinion.
Chief Chuck, this is Bob.
Yes, sir.
You know me, I'm trying to cut things in half. Are 4 of them needed for Belmead?
I definitely think they are. There may be times where we're doing a study on Jackson and on Linwood, or we may be doing in my opinion, when we were talking earlier, I'd like to have 2 out in the 400 block of Linwood at the exact same time we have some on Westview. So it takes 2 to cover both sides of the street, obviously, the north and southbound, east or westbound. So 4 is ideal, because we want to see if putting something in the middle of the road is going to change. We don't want to solve a problem on one street and move it to another without having some data there. And so that's why 4, I think, is a really good number for us to have.
Good answer.
Louise, do you think that because of with all the things we're going to be looking at with Belmead together in terms of traffic, and that it would behoove us to have 4 that we can be running different studies at different times?
Yes, I really do. I think this is needed. And, as we talk about and learn more about this issue of volume and how we distribute this traffic, people on Westview are going to wonder if changes on Linwood are going to impact them, and why they should be in favor of something like this. So I think this is a very good investment. Yes.
Well, we were lucky to have the insurance on this, and actually we may have come out there pretty good, because we're getting brand new ones too. So I imagine new technology involved in them too. So
if I may also, Mayor, the ones that were damaged were purchased with grant money. So they never really technically cost the city any money to begin.
I got you.
Good
Well,
price.
what do we have to do to prove the insurance cost on it? Do they trust us, or what? they give us the grant money cost. Is that how they work on that, Beth? You know,
Lieutenant took care of that, but he had all the data from the original purchase.
okay.
The insurance company wanted, how much they were, regardless of whether it was paid by grant or
Reimbursed
by
on that.
our
Okay,
funds.
good.
It's one of
Okay.
the actual cost.
All right.
Mayor, I move we approve the purchase of these two stalker radar signs for $5,850.
Thank you, Rusty. Is there a second?
Bob Weigel, I second.
Bob says second. All right, we have to vote on that. All in favor, say aye. Roll call. Louise?
Louise Bryan, aye.
Jim Hunt, aye.
Rusty Moore, aye.
Bob Weigel, aye.
That's done. And let's move to the next item, and that's the in-car camera. And
Jimmy, may I interrupt you a second? We skipped one thing. I wanted to ask about it, about the LPR reports.
Yes.
The history. And there was one that there was a stolen vehicle, found the guy behind Dunkin' Donuts in the car, and it would chase him until it got to 100 miles an hour. And I guess we thought we were hurting the public more than we were helping us by catching this guy. What is the policy of the police department on something like that?
Yeah, we certainly don't want to endanger some innocent parties for, a stolen vehicle. At the end of the day, it really is a property crime. It's absolutely our policy that we're not going to endanger the lives of innocent people over a property crime. If you talk about someone who's committed a murder or kidnapped or something, that kind of changes the game. But unless it's a violent felony that's going to be a danger to society, and we're going to try to not pursue just because we don't want to hurt anyone innocent that's just driving down the road and some maniac hit them doing 100 miles an hour.
Is that an unwritten law in the city of Belmead to stop at 100 or what?
Well, I don't know why the 100 miles an hour got in there, but once we try to stop them, the supervisor on duty, if I was the sergeant on duty, and the guys say, hey, he's running, you want to know what they have. And if they say, well, he's in a stolen car, well, the supervisor should know that's a property crime. The officer should know that's a property crime and shut it down.
Is a standard procedure to turn it over to the Metro at that
right
point?
And then we'll alert Metro and say, hey, we just had a blue Honda in a possible stolen car run from us. And then if they have units, they'll look for them, but they're not going to pursue for that either.
Thank you.
And I continue to harp on the fact that if Metro had cameras to dispatch, we sure would want to have some that would be located on Highway 70, I guess, and 100 at least, because that's the biggest way we lose the people. And so if we could keep up with them just for a little while, it might help Metro but we need to keep those people off any road we can. So not just Belmead.
So do we have the authority to, once we leave Highway 70 or 100, leaves our jurisdiction, do we have the authority to continue chasing somebody if
we do. I mean, by statute, we can absolutely chase them if it's something that fits our policy.
Okay.
If they broke the law in Belmead, I guess.
Right. That's if they did something and it's such a serious offense that would meet our criteria for a pursuit being allowed, then we absolutely can chase them to other jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get into this camera. Tell us
yes,
about
sir.
Rusty, what happened there? Not Rusty. I know Rusty will ask a question about it, but what happened, Chuck, on this?
So this is Officer David Wright's camera system that he has in his car. It's one of the oldest that we have in our fleet, and he told me just the other day that it stopped working. I called Digital Ally. It's well out of warranty. Matter of fact, the model that he has in his car is no longer even made. The tech support was very generous and staying on the phone with me about an hour. We tried to troubleshoot everything that they knew how to do. And at the end of the day, they said, I don't think your camera is really going to even be worth fixing. With that, especially in today's climate, it's really tough for officers to be out there without a camera. So I think it's extremely important that we move to make sure he's equipped with a camera and a microphone. We did check the budget because, you know, this was kind of an unsuspected thing. And there's $2,000 budgeted to repair cameras. The tech seemed to think that we would be wasting our money putting anything into an old system. And so the cost of a brand new system, which several of our cars already have, is about $655 more than the $2,000 we had budgeted for repairs.
Which vehicle is this going in?
It's Officer David Wright. It's a 2017 Dodge Charger.
So it's not one that's just sitting there waiting for one.
No, sir. He's an active. Yes, sir. He's active. He's actually does a fabulous job on catching our LPRs. He's had really good success with that, and I think he's been Officer of the Quarter several times since we started that program.
Chief, how old was this camera that's gone bad?
You know, it was in the old Volkswagens.
Oh.
Was transferred over. So he's in a 2017. So I don't want to, you know, misspeak, but I would say it's around 5 years or so.
Technology's caught up on that one too, I would guess. So.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what their lifespan would be. I don't. Lee, do you have any idea how you don't appreciate these specific items, do you? Of the police cars, do you just do the whole? Do you just appreciate or amortize the cost of the car, or do you go to the items in the?
Depends on the cost. You know, our capitalization policy is $5,000. So.
Okay. Well, this is these are very important, and we need to replace it. So.
This is Bob. I move that we replace it with a $25.95 price. Plus the 30 and the 20.
Rusty Moore, I'll second since I'm not muted.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Let's have a vote. Roll call.
Louise Bryan, aye.
Jim Hunt, aye.
Rusty Moore, aye.
Bob Weigel, aye.
Well, I would say that Chucky got everything he asked for. Now we want to do something very, very important right now, and that's going to be the proclamation honoring Dee Howell's retirement. And I'm
Dee, come on around.
What's that? Okay,
I'm getting Dee in position here.
All righty. Look at that. Hi, Dee.
Hey, how are you?
How you feeling, girl?
Pretty good.
All right.
Dee has really probably has no idea. But when she announced that she was going to retire, I kind of figured I wanted to do something pretty special for her. And for those of you who don't know, she spent some time actually as a Capitol police officer before she came to Belmead. And she just did a fabulous job for us. She's such a hard worker. And I'm so thankful that I'm made chief so I could do this for you, Dee. I would have liked to have Commissioner Brian's help because the proclamation sure has a lot of whereas, and I saw you do one for Commissioner Altenburn, and so y'all bear with me. I got a lot of whereas. However, the state of Tennessee, Representative, the House Representative Mary Littleton got this done for us, Dee. It's a proclamation that says, whereas it is appropriate that we should honor those resolute public servants who in their years of work have performed with uncommon devotion and enthusiasm. And whereas Master Patrol Officer Dee Howell is one such estimable person who has served with distinction as a police officer for the city of Belmead and recently announced that she will take her much deserved retirement in January 2021. we did talk her into staying until February, but this was already written. Whereas a distinguished public servant for 28 years, Dee Howell began her law enforcement career with the White County Sheriff's Office, where she served as a corrections officer for 3 years. And whereas after a tenure with the Capitol Police in Nashville, she was hired by the Belmead Police Department on October 21st, 1996, where she has been an asset to the community, developing a strong neighborhood watch coalition and a traffic safety school. And whereas in recognition of her exemplary record of service, Officer Dee Howell was promoted to Master Patrol Officer in 2018. And whereas Dee Howell exemplifies the spirit and allegiance that are characteristic of a true Tennessean. And whereas a resident of White Bluff, Master Patrol Officer Howell plans to enjoy her retirement by spending more time with her 2 grandchildren, painting and gardening. And whereas throughout her estimable career, Master Patrol Officer Dee Howell has demonstrated remarkable ability as a law enforcement officer and won the unbridled respect and admiration of the Tennessee law enforcement community and the citizens of Tennessee. Now, therefore, I, and it's Cameron Sexton, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the 111th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, at the request of and in conjunction with Representative Mary Littleton, do hereby proclaim that we extend to Master Patrol Officer Dee Howell our heartfelt wishes for a happy and fulfilling retirement, salute her honorable and distinguished service to the city of Belmead and this state, and wish her every continued success in her future endeavors.
Everybody unmute.
I had to scrub paint off my hands to be here today. I've enjoyed it.
We got this framed for you, Dee.
Oh, wow.
Here's your copies. And we are so thankful for your service to the city. I'm still getting letters that residents are writing thanking her. She's been gone for about 2 weeks.
They may be thanking you because Dee won't be able to write any more citations.
Could be.
Dee, I wanted to say for your many years that I've worked with you, and you've investigated the traffic accident I had. You've followed me around. I came to one of your safety driving things to keep my insurance from going up. But you've just been there whenever I needed you. You've been great. Neighborhood watch, all the things that you've done for this city, and probably that you're probably better known than Detective Sexton, as I've said before, because you know so many of the residents here by good things that you've done for them and the things that you've done to them. So I'll leave that is, but thank you so much for all you've done. You're just a hero.
It was my pleasure. It was absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Dee.
Congrats, Dee.
Thank you so much for your service, truly.
We miss you.
Thank you, Dee. Appreciate you coming in.
We'll move on to health and sanitation. Larry?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, report. Any questions or concerns?
Bob, we're going to put you on mute. You're right on those papers against that microphone. Blow my ears off.
I got one question, I think. Let me find it.
Yes, sir. Put these glasses on so I can read it.
Oh, I was on the wrong page. I was looking at the building permit.
Hey, Lyle, you're going to have to give Bob a Zoom etiquette meeting.
How about that?
He muted him if y'all didn't know what he did. Whenever he's ready to start talking, he can unmute him. You ready to talk, Bob? Yep, unmute him. You can't unmute him, you just mute him, right?
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, Larry, explain the PM system for the sewer department.
Yes, sir. What we do is I can actually show you the map, but what we do is we go to, we're working on going to every home in the city. We open the tank, we service, we check the floats, check the amperage, check the pumps, make sure they're working the way they're supposed to. Our goal is we try to do them all within a year. It's quite an effort. This is what we've already done so far, if that gives you an idea. The green dots show the ones that we've already completed. So we're working, it's an extensive preventive maintenance program that we go, when we don't have anything to do other than service calls, the guys are out doing preventive maintenance.
Doesn't that lead on to finding a lot of service problems?
Actually, yes and no. I was concerned we were going to go through a lot more parts when we started the preventive maintenance. In actuality, it's been holding its own. It's not been as bad as I expected it to be because we are really good about managing our system. So we haven't had as many as I was expecting. But we can find one occasionally that we end up, but we don't put parts in frivolously. We really are careful about, we change out what needs to be changed out. If it doesn't, we don't.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I got you. Thank you for your help out educating me.
You're welcome, sir.
Next item, city services, building, zoning, and planning. Before we get started, Lyle, I want to thank you for being an unsung hero in this Zoom deal. I don't think people realize that Lyle sits in on every Zoom call we have, turning it on, turning it off, and monitoring it. So Lyle, I really appreciate what you've done on this. Without you, you haven't asked for anything. So we just appreciate you being there. I don't know that we could have made it this smoothly without you.
I appreciate that. If my kids knew I could do this, they would laugh.
Well, you learned the hard way, didn't you?
I did. Baptism by fire.
Okay. Yeah, you want to go ahead and make your report now, Lyle?
Sure.
Thank you.
Any questions on the submitted report?
One question.
Yes, sir.
First item, Paul Gravette's home.
Yes.
Builders. Why? I know it's demo work, but why is no estimated construction cost?
He has not submitted a set of plans yet. It's a standard cost. Demo $500 for a home. Demo for a accessory structure is $250. So that's a standard cost. And I'm actually looking at those costs across the board for our next commissioner meeting.
I noticed Tiny is on here someplace, and he charged me a lot more than $500. I know that much.
That's not the cost of the demo. That's the cost of the permit for the demo.
Yeah, I misread that. You're right. Okay. In other words, you wouldn't guesstimate what the demo would cost.
No, that actual cost is going to come back when I issue the permit. It'll be the total cost of construction, figured by square footage and the demo work that's been done so far. I don't ordinarily put that in the beginning. It's just a standard flat fee.
Okay, thank you.
Well, there's been some controversy, if you want to call it that, over the Historic Zoning Commission's decision on the Walnut case. You want to talk a little bit about that, and Doug? You can. I know you've been involved in it just as much as Lyle has been. So.
Sure. This past Tuesday the 9th, we had Steve, who purchased 325 Walnut Drive, came before Historic Zoning to ask permission to demo the house. And at the same time, he presented a set of plans for approval for a new home. The demo was approved as the board found no historical significance. The property had quite a bit of damage to it in the foundation. The plans were submitted and they checked all the boxes as far as this office was concerned. They were actually under their allowables in height, in the FAR, which is the floor area ratio. He was completely inside the building envelope. And I believe some of the neighbors were concerned about the height. During that meeting, it was asked by the neighbors if they could possibly have him lower the home, which he has done. I've seen the plan of the elevation. I think he was asked to lower it a foot. It's been lowered 1 foot. But I think the major concern here was stormwater. Walnut Drive historically has had a challenge with stormwater for many years. And a lot of this water is coming off of Linwood, Abbott Martin, flowing through the backyards, hitting actually the lot next door to this lot and traveling through the front yards. And I think that was a major concern for the neighbors, and rightfully so. Conversations kind of broke off into the stormwater, which is really, the historic zoning is not the venue for that discussion, but it kind of took off in that direction. So we've got some neighbors that are very concerned.
Doug, what do you want to add to this? I know there's been some discussion, but
Not too much, Mayor. Simply maybe a note about the procedure. Mr. Trella called me last Friday and we talked about what his procedural options were, those that he and the other neighbors, and advised him that the appeal from a decision of the Historic Zoning Commission was to Chancery Court, and that's 60 days from when the decision is made or when the order is entered memorializing the decision. And I told him though that if he could, or the group could ask the Historic Zoning Commission to reconsider its vote, that does not extend the 60 days, and that we could ask the Historic Zoning Commission to reconsider the vote. So I gather, so just so everyone understands, this board doesn't have any appellate jurisdiction over the Historic Zoning Commission, only the courts do. So, but I think that folks are here wanting to be heard, and certainly within your authority, your discretion, let them be heard about whatever their concerns are. That's it. That's all I have to say.
okay, thank you. So we'll open up the discussion with those people who would like to and if they would unmute and introduce themselves, and keep it very brief if you would, please. Thank you. Marshall, did you want to go first?
Not really. I'm not the unofficial. I guess I'll be the unofficial speaker before, if anyone else chimes in. Yes, we do want to thank you all for just taking our letter. There's a list of, I don't know how many, probably nine points in that letter about how a lot of us felt like we were caught off guard. Our street captain, Tammy, let us know that the meeting was happening. And so we appreciated her just letting us know.
We're on now. They're talking about us.
And yeah, so we got some more Walnut neighbors on, so that's good. And we just kind of felt a little blindsided with the meeting. A lot of us weren't prepared, and so I just have a quick question for Lyle. Was the height of the house, was the grade change in the yard taken into consideration with the height of the house? Because there was a lot of talk about checking in the boxes, which shouldn't necessarily be a discussion at the Historic Zoning Commission. That's more of a BZA issue. And I felt like a lot of the topics of discussion that meeting weren't related to whether or not the house actually fit into the fabric of walnut, which is, I think, the most important consideration of that meeting. And so that is one of our concerns. We just do not feel like the current design fits on our street. It'll be the largest house on our street, the highest house on our street. And that's the point of the commission. So if you could answer my question, Lyle, about the height of the house, whether or not this grade change in the yard was taken into consideration, and that's all I have.
Yes, as a matter of fact, they resubmitted, I believe this past Monday, the actual height of the house is now 37 feet. They're allowed 40 and they were at 38. The center point of the house is where the height is taken in the front, at the front setback. It's the average natural grade inside the building envelope. So they are 3 feet under And on the side, you're allowed to go to 50 feet in height, and they're at 44.
Okay, I'd like to look at the codes because, we were reading some codes that for Belmead, the grade change from the lowest point of the lot between the street and the house also needs to be taken into consideration. It doesn't sound like that was taken into consideration with your calculation.
As far as the grade change goes, you are allowed to cut out whatever is necessary for the foundation of the house. Anything inside the building envelope other than the house, you are allowed to change, fill, or take out 6% of the total square footage of the lot up to 4 feet. 4 feet outside the building envelope. It is 4% total of the lot up to 3 feet. And then there is a boundary, a buffer, if you will, all the way around the property line of 20 feet with a 2-foot max, no limit. So if they go over that grade change, when they're finally complete with their grade plan, if they are over by 1 inch in any of those areas, they will have to come to the Board of Zoning Appeal.
Do you know if any assessment's been done on that, property, whether or not they can take land out? I know there's concerns that there's rock. Do you know
We don't allow blasting. I know that was a concern. There's no blasting in Belmead. I don't know if there's rock on that site.
Okay, thank you, Lyle. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything that they'd like to the commissioners to hear? Doug, what would what, if any, direction would they have to take to carry this thing further?
Well, as I said, Mayor, the going back to the Historic Zoning Commission would not be an appeal. It would be, they would be asking the Historic Zoning Commission to rehear the matter. They don't have to rehear it. It's within their discretion to do so. And then if that were not allowed, result didn't change. And as I said, they have an option of taking it to court for review. And I don't know whether we issue an actual order on these decisions, or I advised Mr. Trella that I thought he just assumed that the 60 days ran from the date of the decision. He may have a little more time than that, but I didn't want to lead him down the primrose path. So, Lyle, do we issue an order on these things like we do on BZA?
Honestly, that's a question for Edie or Beth. I'm not complete on that.
Well, for tonight's purposes, just assume that 60 days from last Tuesday, you would have to file an appeal with the court if you didn't get relief from the Historic Zoning Commission.
Well, let me ask you a question. How that 37-foot height that you're looking at on this building, how does it compare to the next door neighbors?
Well, if you're familiar with Walnut, this house is the second one in on the left. And Walnut slopes pretty heavy from the top of the street there at Abbott Martin to the dead end. This would be one of the higher properties at Walnut. So, and the lot itself slopes heavily left to right.
Does it? Okay.
The home that you put on this lot is going to be somewhat imposing, if you will, according to today's standards, simply because if you're coming up Walnut, you're going to notice a home 37 feet tall as opposed to a home that's in the flatter area down below that's close to 37 feet tall.
Is the architectural and like the other houses, or is it a very contemporary house or what?
Well, I believe it's referred to as an English cottage, and that was assigned by the architect. And I believe the Historic Zoning Commission agreed with that.
Okay.
I do not want the commissioners to get too deeply involved, but I want them to be aware. I think it's important because of things that have happened in the past that we get blindsided sometimes. And I think just for us to be aware of this it's been helpful. I think it's also going to be important that as the BZA would look at this, that they take this under consideration, that the commissioners have been informed. But Lyle, I would also recommend that obviously the BZA know exactly what the historic zoning did with this, so there's not any confusion among the two different commissions.
Well, I do know that Mr. Cates is working with the landscape architect to do their best not to go over the grade change of our ordinance. And if that is the case, then they will not have to come to the Board of Zoning Appeal until he decides to put in a pool. So if he checks the box on the grade change, he has the right to come in here and pull a permit.
Okay.
Doug, Rusty Moore again, and one more just procedural question. I think I somewhat misunderstood the commissions. So is it true that of any of our boards, our zoning appeals, planning commission, and historic zoning, that their appeal right is always to Chancery Court and not to our commission?
Yes, the city commission is a legislative body, not your appeals from any of its boards.
And if a commission makes a decision that we do not agree with, we have a right to appeal, but we would have to appeal to Chancery Court as a commission?
That's an interesting question. There's a case where metropolitan government appealed the decision of its own Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Supreme Court upheld their right to do so because theoretically the city government is a party before its own board. These boards and these commissions are really like administrative decision makers. And so, yes, theoretically. So I've ever seen it. The only case I've ever seen is that Metro case where that happened.
Thank you. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but I did want to understand that specifically. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make one other comment, if he does meet the grade change, he still has to go through the process of a stormwater approval. And to my knowledge, he has not submitted those stormwater plans yet. And I would imagine, due to the complexity of this lot, it would be a rather detailed and lengthy review process. So you're probably looking at, and Steve, you could speak to this, a couple of months before it's approved. I mean, that's just a wild guess, but it's not like if he's approved on the grade change, he can come here tomorrow and pull a permit. It will be detailed, lengthy stormwater.
That's exactly right. And the fact that the lack of infrastructure downstream and the sensitivity downstream would all be taken into account during the review.
This has been very informative. I appreciate it, and I trust that the neighbors understand what the commissioner's role is in this, and that we would, we'll be listening up to see what the next steps will be. Anybody else from Walnut want to make any comments? Well, I thank you, and Lyle, thank you. And with that, we'll move to Laura Catherine and beautification.
Hello. Okay, I'll be quick. We have gone over, so I'll be real quick. We met this month, and the biggest action item that we have right now is we're working on the sort of a recommended plantings list, what we would like to see in Bellmead together, sort of to have some plants and sort of a look that says Bellmead. We're also considering ways that we can cut our budget and also sort of promote sustainability. So using more perennials rather than annuals, and pollinator gardens and deer resistant and all kinds of considerations. Before we were just doing pretty flowers, and now we're really trying to think about some things. So we are putting together a list of recommended plantings to get to Bellmead together. And so the second thing that's real big that I'm really excited about is our webpage is coming together. I'm writing all the contacts. We've got a little bio on everybody who's on the committee, and then a designated giving page where you can give online. You can see your giving levels, that kind of thing. And then also an education page, actually several education pages that will serve as links to articles, anything that you would be interested in, if you are everything from rain barrels to pollinator gardens to when do I, what do I do to protect from the frost, and when do I do my trimmings, and when do I plant my grass, and that kind of stuff. So we're assimilating all of that. I'm getting that together, and we want that to happen quickly because the fundraising letters went out. Thank you very much, Larry, for taking them to be stuffed. And I think they went out. Beth, did they go out yesterday? Woo! So we're excited. The campaign has begun. Our strategy and development committee has started meeting, and we have decided, we've really got to, before we would have one letter and that was it all year. And so now we really want to have 3 to 4 touches, maybe some sort of letter or something to touch residents, 3 to 4 times a year, like once a quarter, every 3 months. Maybe it's an email, maybe it's an email we send to our donors. We haven't fleshed that out, but we are working on ways. As you know, we had a dip with the pandemic and in our donations, and so we're looking to make that up. And then of course with Belle Mead Together, as we hope to have lots of big projects coming for beautification, we want to have money in our budget for that. So that's very exciting. And then I actually have some very sad news. Caroline Stevens is going to be stepping down. She wants to spend more time with her family, and we completely understand, but we are all very sad. So we have suggested making her a member emeritus of our committee, and we'd also like to plant a tree in her honor. So I'll get back to you on that, but she was beloved and will be very missed. Just a wealth of knowledge and passion, and we loved having her on our committee. And then another update, Jill DeBona is going to step away. I don't know if you're aware, but she has been called to work on a human rights case. And between that and then the pandemic, her work has just mushroomed. And so she's stepping back for 6 to 9 months. We're going to evaluate it 6 months, and she'd love to come back in the fall. But if it needs to wait until 2022, then absolutely we'll hold her place. With that said, we had talked about doing roll-offs anyway, starting at year 2. I do have some people, some people that actually, one person has approached me requesting to be on the committee. If you have anybody who would like to step in or you think would be a good fit, send me an email. In the past, I've received some, a commissioner has sent, an email saying, let's, put you in touch regarding series, and then I would never hear back from them, and I'm certainly not going to push it. But if you have anybody who's interested and is interested, just send me their contact info and I will reach out. So that's my update. Does anybody have any questions? Okie doke.
All right, Catherine, thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right.
Catherine, I'd just say one question. Do you think you and your committee will be ready to present the planting recommendations at your next meeting? Or
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. We've already got our preliminary list.
Okay.
So now it's a matter of sort of breaking it down into these are annuals, these are perennials, these are deer resistant, these are pollinators.
Great.
These would be great for the boulevard. These not so much, that kind of thing. So but yes, I absolutely do it. I know,
Thank you. It's a lot of work. Thank you.
We're enjoying it.
Okay, all those words you're using sound like you've really got a new background into the horticulture, huh?
I am definitely, my vocabulary has expanded, and I even know what they mean. Jim, are you proud of me?
I am.
Since you used to tell people I didn't know the difference in a rose and a daisy.
Okay, let's move on. City communications, no matters. Lee, finance. Let's get into whatever you want to talk about here.
Okay, you have your packet in front of you of your financial statements. I'd like to point out one thing, and I apologize, on the sewer fund financials, they are both January statements, but it does say December. I just neglected to change a date, so I do apologize about that. But anyway, does anyone have any questions?
Lee, I just want to ask a question. Do you see any problems anywhere that after you studied the variances between budget and actual, are you? I haven't had the time to look at anything in particular, but is there anything that we need to be aware of?
Well, the only variances are explainable, of course, by COVID. You know, like in our general fund, you know, our state shared revenue is actually, you know, we mentioned even last year when COVID first started, it was a little better than expected, and that trend has continued. And so the only other ones that are really affected is the public safety charges. You know, that one, we've not been able to get hardly any income on that one. That's where the police officers do the duty, like at the churches and kind of thing. So we know the items, we know why we're low on the items that we are low on.
Yeah.
So Lee, I'm looking at page 31 and page 54. So page 31, operating revenue, property and other taxes, $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So that corresponds to page 54, local taxes, $1.5 million, correct? Okay, gotcha. And so understand all that. So then hall tax is intergovernmental on page 54. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And everything else should flow through. Okay.
Yeah, actually, did you see page 57?
No, I've got 57. Yeah, no, 57. I'm sorry. Yeah. So intergovernmental is actually the other
it's
taxes.
Right.
So where's
the whole income tax?
The whole
is
income tax
is in, if I could say it, is in intergovernmental tax. It's the 1.371. It's down.
State income tax. Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I can never find it here. Got it. I
Right.
see. Okay. So it's actually 1.3. That's our number right now. Page 50.
Right.
Okay. So
exactly.
1.3. Okay. So it's so a state income tax on page 31. That's Hall. Got it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Louise, thank you for getting in the weeds on this one. That's good.
Okay.
Helping us with that. I think the appropriations is tough to read, getting comparing budgets to any changes.
So the issue on page 54 is that we're down $1 million from original to amended.
Exactly.
Because of, so this is, so
that's where the Word document comes in handy.
The what?
The Word document, page 55.
55. Oh, okay. All right.
It kind of
Thank you.
summarizes
Okay.
everything for you.
Yes. Okay. Got it. All right.
Well, thank you for doing that, Lee. That helps us. That's the guide to all the changes. Before we just had to kind of look around and see if we could figure it out. But this is,
okay.
This is very helpful.
It's page 57. Okay. Got it. All right. Yeah. I have it all now. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure.
Lee, I've got one other question.
Sure.
Page 33, the capital budget report. 31. That's the next to the last column, actual spent / committed to date.
Right.
That only can apply to the fiscal year 21, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Is there a way that you can split that, make two columns out of that one column? How much was actual spent and how much was committed to date?
Well, actually, if you look over to the far left-hand side on that same page, you see where it says fiscal year 21.
Yeah.
That's sort of where we started out as our what we thought we were gonna, where we were gonna spend. And then that column you're talking about, the last one, or next to the last one, I should say,
Yeah.
that's what's actually been spent.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
I'm
if
sorry, I'm not understanding.
I see the 76 and you're saying that's what's committed to date and slash actual spent. I don't know how much of is goes into each column. I would say it was 0 was actual spent, and 100% of it has not been committed.
Well, I'll say everything in that column is actual.
Okay.
Maybe that column should,
It doesn't say that, but I mean, you go
yeah,
down.
I was gonna say, maybe I should rename that column, but that is actual.
For instance, if you go down to the 4th row, you got 17. I'm not. I don't mean to be
No, I'm,
grabbing at straws here, but it says 1750, and then if you look over, it's 1637. So I don't know what's the difference. I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm not following where you are.
1, 2, 3. What is it? The 4th row down, $1,750 under furnishings and office equipment. We show $1,750 was the what we got in there for that, and then we say 1637.
Right, we had budgeted 1750.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we were committed, that's what our budget was gonna be.
Yeah.
I know what that was. That was that chair for the dispatchers, and it was only $1,637.
I know by looking at it that there won't be another $80 or so coming. Difference between 1637 and 1750 coming that will be spent in that column, that row.
I don't know how you won't know that it won't be,
Yeah.
but
Kind of hard to follow all this, Bob. I'm struggling with this.
are you?
Yeah, but I feel like we're bound. We need to be referring to what page numbers we're on too, because it's
Page 33.
okay.
Can I make a statement just to kind of explain things?
Please.
We're required to amend our budget before the year end. The state requires us to pretty much have a balanced budget. I mean, we can't be way over or way under on our revenues and expenditures at the end of the year. This isn't like a business financial statement where you have a budget at the beginning of the year and it just falls out where
Yeah.
everything lands. We have to make these adjustments so that when we come to year end, our budget is as balanced as we can predict it to be. It's a guessing game, but we can't just spend money during the year and have decreases or increases in revenue and not recognize it in our budget. So that's why we have to do this every year. And it's complicated. It takes us hours and hours.
If I was just looking at this, yeah, I'm always going to look at it from the business side. But if I was just looking at how would I know that we've got so many dollars committed, but you spent 0 in that category, so that means I'm going to look at it and say, well, hell, we don't have enough money to pay these budgeted items. If they're coming across that way. You see what I'm saying? I'm looking to see, are we going to have enough money to pay the rest of that budgeted item? You see why I'm asking. I hate to be negative about it, but that's the way I am.
Well, and we may not. I mean, there's been very few years that we haven't had enough money. Because usually the haul tax would come in for more than we expected and we'd be flush with money. This year, it may be a little different because we're not getting the amounts that we used to, but we're spending from our fund balance to compensate. We're cutting costs when we can, but we're still going to move on with capital projects and things like that, Bob. So again, it's a guessing game and estimating as best you can what you expect your revenues to be at year end. We're predicting June now. right now with these budget amendments and predicting what our expenditures are going to be when June rolls around.
I mean, from an accounting standpoint, retained earnings is actually a cash account. So we have, if we have a fund in retained earnings of cash, that's where the cash comes from. Is the question more of budgeting or is the question of solvency?
It shouldn't be on solvency. So,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
So I'm worrying about something I shouldn't worry about.
Well, when you've got, 12 to $14 million of non-allocated funds, but you got to be careful that you don't keep digging into that. Just, we got the money over here. Let's just use it. So
no, you don't want to do that at all.
That's why you have to stick with the budget. And Louise is exactly right. In business, this is retained earnings. You just reach over there and retained earnings and grab it. But we can't do that. So we could do it, but it's just that it's not accounted for the same way.
And Bob, Rusty Moore again. I think your point is certainly seen and well taken. And Lee, your memo on page 55 that really explains, we can look at the numbers all day, but your synopsis of that and what has changed, and much of it is COVID related, but the bulk is this big thing in the room that we talk about from a financial point of view every time we get together, much like the speeding on the boulevard, Mayor. We talk about this hall tax, and this is our challenge. It's right here in front of us every month. This is our challenge.
It's good to talk about it because it continues to remind us what our financial situation. Maybe 5 years down the road, we'll have forgotten about what the hall tax did and everything else is in place. But right now, we're talking about influx financing. So.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to figure out what the real tax rate for the city of Belmead is without the hall tax is the bottom line. But no, Bob, I think everything is we should continue to approach everything from a budget standpoint. I was just saying that if the question is how could we look at it this way, I believe we are solvent and that we will be able to get through this year.
That's the attempt we'll always be making, is to try to live within our budget, and our budget should not be, well, we just pull the excess, but so we can't do that. And Lee, I want to again add what Rusty said. This page 55 is really, really good, and that's something that should keep us from having to spend a lot of time on these amendments in the future, because if we just if all the commissioners would just refer to that certainly helps a lot. And any questions that lend from that, we can discuss that. But this should take care of where the increases and decreases come from. So
I never made it to page 55.
It's there. Yeah. But I think this is something that Lee was encouraged to do, because she kept getting questions from us about how do we read this damn thing, and it was hard. It was hard to read. And this tells us, if when any column that we look at that's got changes, this is how they're defined. It's the silence is deafening. I hear no crickets. Okay, guys.
Well, let me add, I'm still not certain that splitting that column would tell me a bit more of a story. Splitting that next to last column, tell me how much has already been spent and how much is in the balance would be what's committed to be spent. Correct?
Well, I hate to keep saying, but if you look at that first column, that first FY,
yeah,
that was what we had budgeted.
Right.
So that's, and then that last column, or next to the last column, that's what we've actually spent. So of course, if we took the two columns and subtracted them, that would be what's remaining in the budget for that line item. Does that help?
The variance, yeah.
Bob, you got some suggestions that might be satisfied by some headings and some changes there. I would suggest that you and Lee and maybe Beth get together and you all kind of work through these things and see if you can come up with a better way to present this. We're constantly trying to improve the way the financial statement presents itself. And many people coming from business look at a financial statement one particular way when you come, and I know Beth looks at it, I won't say entirely different, but she looks at it like she's been looking at them for like 30 years. And so it's very hard to compare those. And Lee, you probably looked at them from both sides. So it
Started out looking at them the other way, I admit.
So maybe, Bob, would you be willing to get together with Lee and kind of talk about things that might be presented in a more clarifying way?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we will move on. And I don't think well, I won't say that. I don't think. That's not a good way to start off. Okay. Approval of invoices above $5,000. I've got the first one, page 43 is Barge Cawthorn, 7890. Reverse side Commonwealth Chemical, 8333.25. Omnigo, I guess that's pronounced that right. 7807, 16 cents. And what is that? Data Source Mobility, is that right?
Yes.
21,568.75. That's the, okay, that's, I don't know what that is now. And then Sammy Gibbs, and that's the snow removal of 72,385. Strafer Pump and Supply, 12,455. Wascon, 6393.26. Wascon for 6635.50. Wascon, I had the wrong side there. No, I didn't. Wascon 5925.28. Lee, is that it?
That's it.
No, there's one more.
Oh, there is? Oh, the one I sent to Lyle. Lyle, could you put that up, please?
All right, that is
Right before the meeting started.
that's Kimley Horn, 11,750. What is this? Is this just a payment on
It's progress payment.
progress payment? Okay.
Number 6.
11,750. Do I hear a motion to approve the invoices over 5,000?
Oh, I'd like one question before you.
Okay.
Approve it. I'm gonna approve it, but the question is, I'm gonna go on record and saying Barge Cawthorn. A lot of that stuff to me could be done by Larry. You know, Larry knows the conditions of these roads. I mean, it's all just going out and looking at roads and preparing a schedule. I just think it's outrageous.
I'll let Larry and Beth answer that. This is not really the exact time we should be talking about it, but
no, it's not. I'm gonna vote for it. I'm just saying we'll.
I know, but just
We've addressed it before, but I mean, Larry, can you kind of state?
Yes, ma'am.
Cawthorn does. It's beyond what we can do. So
Yeah, what they can actually come out and do is they actually have equipment that gives us the actual conditions of the road. And what it does is in the past, the public, and I know when George here and others, and it's not for me to go out and say, this street needs to be paved. Yeah, I can look at them. But the thing is, this is a overall assessment of the city for a long range plan to what streets need to be done, what year. It gives us a schedule to go by, and it gives us the footages, and it gives us the documentation that we need when we do get ready to pave them. All that, it's kind of, and it kind of helps us get everything that we need. Where it's above my knowledge.
Pay grade.
I was going to say pay grade, but to do the assessment that they do. Yeah, I can go out here and say Forsyth's a bad street because they've had a lot of construction work. But I'm not gonna, for me to say we need to pave this street and overdo another street that I can't see, that they see things that I can't see in the way they do it is a really, we did the same thing before. And I know, Bob, you looked at the last one and you've seen where we got the printouts. And it is really beneficial to the city. And this is something that's going to probably could be used, we're planning on 10 years before we have to do it again.
Probably more than that.
Or more, it's just according, how we stage out our paving.
I understand they're putting a professional approach on it, much more than you have time or the equipment to do. But I know for a fact you and Boyd back in the day used to ride down the streets and say, well, we don't need to do that one this month, this year. We can do that one probably 2 years down the road. And that happened. And we changed the schedule.
That's a little different. But Larry, let's speak to that because I remember.
Yeah, that was on there was 1 year that Boyd wanted to do a street that wasn't up on the schedule. And we did look at it and we did adjust the schedule for the street that Boyd wanted to do. But we didn't do it at hurting another street, and we did that street the following year. We just switched years.
Yeah.
And I that's commissioner's input, and we did that when he was over the streets with me at that time. But we pretty much, if you look at the way we've done the plan, the overall street condition inventory in the past, we do the worst streets first, and we follow it. And we try to stay with that. That way, there's no question. We're not paving. I'm going to use you as an example. I'm not paving Inquirer or the Mayor Street just because he's the mayor.
Oh, come on.
Need to be paved. and that's what the bottom line is. We're doing it the way, and there's impartial, and by what needs to be done, not by.
Do you actually look at their schedule?
Yes, sir.
See if there's anything you've read.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, also, Larry may not be here that, in 20 years, and we've got now and if Larry is making all those decisions and somebody came back and said, who made all those decisions? Well, at least we got a professional we could sue if we needed to. Larry, we couldn't sue Larry at that time. He's gone. He's over with George eating dinner or something.
Oh, we could try.
Let me ask Lyle. Lyle, you've been in construction all your life. Do you think we're wasting any money there or not?
Not from what I see, but I'm not qualified to answer that.
Good answer.
Okay.
Steve, you want to answer that?
Mayor, may I move to approve these invoices over $5,000?
Yes, sir, you can. How about a second on this? I think Louise is gonna, you second it with a hand wave?
Second.
Okay. Okay, let's have a roll call vote on that.
Louise Bryan, aye.
Jim Hunt, aye.
Rusty Moore, aye.
Bob Weigel, aye.
All right, that's passed. Thank you. We've already, facilities, no matters, personnel. Chuck already gave us an update on department shift. Beth, you have anything you wanted to add to what Chuck had already said?
Well, we interviewed a candidate this morning, a female candidate for police officer, and we liked her a whole lot. And we got our fingers crossed that she's going to accept the position. She's going to let us know by Friday this week. So she'd be a great addition to our police department if she did accept.
Excellent, excellent. Replacing Dee, that would be good. Anything else, Beth, on that?
I don't think so. Chuck, you have anything to add?
Just one thing that I should have mentioned earlier on the detective's report. He had made a notification about the Amber Alert that was recovered.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe some of you saw it on the news or read it in Passover. Everyone that was involved in that, I gave them a commendation. It goes in their personnel file. From dispatch to the officers to Detective Sexton did a fabulous job, and we did recognize them for their efforts in that.
thanks for bringing that up. The commissioners and Beth and Lyle, we were all Beth had just walked in to the retreat and she had just learned about it. And so we caught it, but we didn't know any details until the next day. So anyway, thank you, Chuck, for bringing that back. I'm glad they got the accommodations. That was certainly, Bellmead needs to be very proud of that, proud of our police force for doing that. Thank you. Legislation, I don't know, do you think, I guess we need to vote on this, but we sure have beat that thing like a dead horse. Amending the ordinance, does anybody have any questions? Or you want to go into more detail on the ordinance, or is everybody ready to vote to approve it? Oh, Rusty, maybe he's a little reluctant over there. Well, we'll talk about it. So we're talking about the 2021-01, amending the ordinance 2020-1, budget appropriation of fiscal year 2020-2021. What's a lot of 20s in there.
20s and 21s.
Yeah. And again, Lee, I think that your page 55 that's really, really good. And please keep that up on these future.
I think so. But now that we're looking at, do we need to change this now that we're looking at going ahead with that other project?
Yeah, under expenditures, under streets, page 55.
We are going to do another budget amendment resolution at the end of the year. This one
Okay.
is normally done in December. And it didn't get done in December. And then I forgot the reasons. I don't know if we didn't have some data ready or whatever. And then for last month, so we're kind of behind. We usually do a mid-year amendment and then an end of the fiscal year amendment. So this kind of lagging behind, but we are going to do another one before the end of the year. So we'll have some more data on some actual costs maybe of these projects that we're looking at doing. So you'll see this again in a couple months.
And also, Beth, we may have some deductions as far as my survey thing. That might go down.
That's right.
And also, I think, Lyle, you're going to present that about the permit fee, stormwater and all that stuff. That'll increase revenue.
I'm working on that now. I have 2 or 3 things ready for the next commissioners meeting. Yes.
Yeah. Everything's changing.
All right, do we go back to the voting on this? Do we have a motion to approve or more discussion?
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-01, amending ordinance for the budget appropriations for fiscal year 2020-21.
Thank you, Louise. To a second?
I second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Louise Bryan, aye.
Jim Hunt, aye.
Rusty Moore, aye.
Bob's already done that, so good. All right, so the last thing is I wanted to give a quick update on the street lights, and we got into it just a little bit, but I had written, I think I copied everybody on my email to Laura Smith about needing some clarification on the lights that had to do with the contract, to the who pays for what. It was asked for a lot of detail. She didn't respond, and I asked her again. She said, "Oh, she forgot about it," and then she said she's going to get Antonio to help her. So I think we'll have that probably the next few weeks. We need to get more detail. We don't have anything in the file as to what our big dollars that we just sent to NES, exactly what it represents. And so that's what we asked her for that. The second thing had to do with the existing poles and the leaning poles and the metal poles. If you all recall, during our last meeting with NES, when we had everybody together, there was some discussion about metal poles, and I think it was sort of the consensus that we really didn't like metal poles. But I tell you, when you see the lights, on the wooden poles versus metal poles look a heck of a lot better. And they're straight, they're tall, they don't show all the wires as much as and so we've got, I think there are 3 metal poles out there that one of them is not connected with lights, but it will. And then another group of lights that where they hadn't been installed will go on to metal poles. And then we have one metal pole that have the lights on them. I have asked Brad McKelvey and Joey Strassel, that is Joey Strassel. Streisel, that before they go to replace any pole, now that we have a say so in that, and we would, I think our tendency is going to be to go to metal poles, frankly, if it's the rusted brown. And in fact, trying to straighten some of these poles, Larry's told me that NES feels like that some of these poles leaning are intolerance. Well, my question is not in my tolerance, it's in their tolerance. And we're going to keep complaining. I think some of these things that they did say that they can, or at least we've had some people tell us that those lights are on swivels. So you can swivel the light to make the pole, or it makes it look like they're not leaning. When the whole thing leans, it looks really terrible. But if you were to lean, if you're leaning the light fixture, it will look better. So we're going to get those done first, but I think we really need to stay on them about straightening these poles. Some may not be able to be straightened, and we'll try to get them replaced. And I think that's just going to be a project. Louise, I don't want that necessarily fall into Bellmead together, but I think we can all agree on that. We're not talking about hopefully any money on our part. Hopefully we get NES to foot those, since they own the stuff now. But that was just my update, and I'll keep you all informed. I just hadn't heard back from Joey and Brad, and I hadn't heard back from Laura yet. So, but we're trying, we're working on it. So, and I hadn't forgotten about it.
Yeah, I think we need to broaden the discussion of when we make big decisions about capital improvements on the boulevard. I think we're going to have to bring in Historic Zoning Commission or Series, or bring in some other, or even the Bellmead Together Steering Committee. But I don't think at the end of the day, this commission should make these capital decisions that are going to last 10, 20, 30 years for the boulevard. I think it has to be a little bit broader into the community.
Well, it's not going to be that easy. So when we haven't heard back from any of them yet. So when we start hearing back, we can then decide what steps to take.
Okay.
I agree with you. Any other, we had a report for Haley for her legislative report, but I don't think she wants to make that from Hawaii. Anyone have anything else?
Good meet.
If not, I will declare this meeting adjourned. And Wednesday, the 21st of April is the next meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance and your participation and your patience. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you all.